So today's agenda will be to review the ECC screens and functions. Specifically, we will be talking about how to view statements that have already been pre-reviewed, how to review previous year's statements, how to review terminated employees, differentiating between edit and view access within ECC, resolving variances, which would involve using the reset button, which we will explain when we get there, and placing statements on hold and what the value of that is, like the purpose behind it, as well as how to do that and what permissions effort coordinators and business managers have. So let's get going. So to view statements already pre-reviewed, so individuals can log into the ECC system, go to, as effort coordinators or business managers, you can go to the Manage tab as displayed here, and then select Department Dashboard. From there, you can select the appropriate 6-digit org from the dropdown, and then that will bring you to a screen that looks like this. I have snapshots of both what it would look like if you have the efforts certification tab open or the project certification tab. So just some pointers here. Ensure that on effort certifications, you've selected the faculty employee type. And on project certifications, you want to ensure that it is the non-faculty employee type. And then ensure that for both of them, you are selecting the corresponding period that you intend to look at. In this case, I have highlighted AY24, which would be August 16th, 2023 to August 15th, 2024. And then once you have those, you've selected those particular parameters, then that would show you the status of any relevant statements at that time. So in the example that we're looking at here, there's 2 statements that are auto-approved for effort certifications. There are 5 that are ready for pre-review, and there are 2 that have already been pre-reviewed. So in this case, then, for say effort statements, you could below where the status update is, the summary here, below that would be the list of statements, and you could select from any of those. They no longer show up in your work list because they've already been pre-reviewed and completed this task. So this is how you would go and find them, and you would complete the same, you would follow the same steps in order to access any project statements that have already been pre-reviewed. And so once you select the statement that you're interested in reviewing after it's already been pre-reviewed, if there are edits that need to be made, then you can select the reopen button, which would be found in the bottom right-hand corner of either the effort statement as displayed here or project statements as displayed here. So effort coordinators have the ability to go and find a statement that has previously been pre-reviewed by going to the department dashboard and then going into the statement and reopening it should there be any additional adjustments or edits that need to be made. And then just a reminder that since the ECC system was implemented for the AY23 effort reporting period, the system will have AY23, AY24, and at this point in time, AY25 statements all in the system. And so as displayed here, this is a snapshot that I pulled from the full statement in the upper right-hand corner. If you're looking at the full screen, then I've just kind of zoomed in, and you'll see here that the AY23 statement is reflected as certified. The AY24 statement that's in the purple line, that is currently in a pre-review status. And then the AY25 is already in building since AY25 started on August 16th of this year. And so the system will default to the system could default to the statement that, quote, needs action. And in this case, because for AY24, we are currently in the pre-review period, the certification period has not yet started, then the pre-review, or then the statement that is pre-reviewed is already moved along in the process. And then once we open for certification, then it will once again be the default statement because it will require action until there is certification completed. So just a little heads up on the default statement may not be AY24 when you pull it up, depending on what the current status of that statement is. So we will move right along to reviewing previous year statements. So same thing, you will log into ECC, go to Manage tab, and then go to the Department Dashboard. once again, select the appropriate 6-digit org from the dropdown. And then here, just like I mentioned in the previous, you want to ensure that you select the period for which you are trying to look for the effort statement. So for AY23 statements, that would be the first ones that are in the ECC system. Then you would just select the appropriate year or the appropriate date period. So August 16th, 2022 through August 15th, 2023. And then that would bring up any statements that were created at that time for that period. So that's where you would select for previous year's statements. So we're going to keep on going. Next up, we are talking about viewing terminated employees and their statements. So similar to the previous two, once you go to your department dashboard under the Manage tab, then there will be the list of the different employee groupings or categories of what type of effort statements are, this is under the effort statement tab. So what type of statements there might be. So there would be statements for people with sponsored, non-sponsored, non-department, and terminated. And I wanted to just specifically talk about terminated here. So you would have to expand this terminated field, and that would be where you find your terminated employees. And just a heads up that in the search function that is in the upper right-hand corner of the ECC system, there, if you were to attempt to type in a terminated employee here, unfortunately, it will not populate because they are listed as terminated. And so if you don't know which org to search them in, another handy way to find terminated employees would be by coming here to the administration tab and then selecting manage users. You can either type in the UIN or the last name of the individual and then select them from the dropdown that appears underneath this field. Then once you have this administration screen up, then in the upper right-hand corner, there is an option to go to the effort statement. So this is a useful tool in instances where you may not know what org an terminated employee might fall into. So we wanted to point that out. So next up, we have differentiating between view and edit. And that is where I'm going to ask Katrina Lopez to take the reins and go into this explanation.
I will try, Kathleen. Okay, so I think we've definitely been getting some questions about, making sure folks' access is correct, and I'm sure it is not correct for everybody. So we are working through any of those tickets that you have submitted, and hopefully a little bit of this explanation will help on determining what kind of access is needed. So the first step there, step number one and the only step on these slides, is to determine if you or another business manager needs to be responsible for the editing and submission of the statement. Or does the person just need to be able to access the statement? Do they just need to be able to view it? And I know that we talked about view only access, and that kind of came up in other discussions. There is a viewing option. It's not necessarily a role that we give or that somebody has that role for all the statements that they look at, but I'll try to explain here sort of what the differences are and when you can view and when you have editing. But that is something that is important. I think that might have that was something that I don't think we emphasized last year, is knowing, when we're trying to request access, is whether the individual needs editing access and submission access, and essentially, are they acting as a business manager for that statement, or do they only need to view, a couple of funds on the statement, and they can relay the information to you. So viewing on an effort statement, so down below, you can do this without having to request any special access. If a faculty member has an effort statement and they have a fund that belongs in your org, the faculty is not in your org, you should still be able to view that faculty statement by going to your department dashboard that the fund is in. And then under the non-department section that's highlighted there on the screen, that's where you should see the faculty member listed, and you should be able to view their statement. You typically will not be able to edit or make any entries or submit the statement, but that that allows you automatically, without requesting any special access, to view the statement. If that's all the individual needs, then that's already there. If you want to grant somebody editing access, I'll get into that on one of the next slides. Then I'll kind of go through the different types of editing access. But that's how you would view on an effort statement. So just noting, you won't be able to edit. Project statements can only be viewed and edited by the primary effort coordinator, the secondary effort coordinator, or if a business manager is sort of overriding that primary, those are the only other individuals. There is not really a way to view only. A secondary effort coordinator, they can view a project statement, but they also have editing privileges and should also have submission privileges. So it's not really the same on effort statements as it is on project statements. So that's something to keep in mind. Next slide. And so these are the various editing roles that are currently out there. So we have the primary effort coordinator. This individual will have all of the effort statements for that org and all of the project statements for that org listed on their work list. It's by 6-digit. And the secondary effort coordinator for a 6-digit org has access to and has access to both, but their work list only shows their effort statements and not any of the project statements. However, they can still navigate to the project statements through their department dashboard. They can still access both, the effort and the project tabs. It just won't show up on the project statements will not show up on their work list, but they will have editing, they will have view access. Then we have a couple of different types of overrides where, okay, the primary business manager for a whole org, maybe it's not the same for a particular faculty member. We want to assign it to another effort coordinator. So we have an alternate effort coordinator override. So this individual will override the primary effort coordinator that's originally assigned, and they will only have access to that faculty member's effort statement. Then we also have another role that can, in that case, that individual will be able to edit the statement. Then we also have another role that's a business manager assignment override. And essentially this type of assignment will override the primary effort coordinator for both effort statements and project statements related to that faculty member. So those are all of those have editing and viewing access, for the most part, submission access. And so that's where we have to get an understanding that if we want to reassign, do we really need to reassign? Do you already have it under that non-department list? Or is this something that another faculty or another business manager is actually going to be responsible for submitting and completing the whole report? So next slide, I just want to show how it might show up on your dashboard. So on the left-hand side, we have the department dashboard of an effort statement. So you may see this alternate effort coordinator column if someone is there. So down at the bottom, we have Luis Martinez. She is the alternate effort coordinator. So for that particular faculty member, she is now the responsible effort coordinator for that person's effort statement. It looks like she was also set up as business manager access. So essentially she has access to both effort and project statements. And in the business manager column, we see Rachel Bander. She has access for that particular faculty member for both effort and project statements. So they are not the original primary effort coordinators for this org, but they were chosen or selected to override whoever that primary is, and they are now the responsible business manager. For project statements, here's an example of where you might override a project statement. So in this example, Liz Hawes is the primary effort coordinator for this particular org. However, you see on the highlighted section, there's a little red rectangle. Somebody else, another effort coordinator, was assigned for that particular project statement, and she is now overriding that original. And those folks you can edit you can edit that on the project statement tab, and you can remove it at any time. And that's kind of how you can tell if somebody is overriding, has editing access, is responsible for a particular statement in your org. So I will pass it on over to you, Kathleen, and you can go through the rest.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So going back to other ECC nuances or ECC reminders. So variances. This is a couple slides about how to resolve variances, and a heads up that a variance is when the computed effort and the certified effort on statements are not in sync. So first, before we tell you how to resolve them, I wanted to point out how you would see that, how it would be displayed on an effort and a project statement, because they are different. So on an effort statement, here's an example where the computed effort and the certified effort. So the computed effort is going to be the calculation of the payroll percentage and the cost share percentage. And so in this situation, 44.51% on payroll, 0% in cost share is 44.51%. So that makes sense. However, if you look over at the certified column, then you'll see that the percentage is currently showing as 50.98. And then you'll see at the bottom that the total of the computed effort column is 100%, whereas the total of the certified column is 106.47%. And that is because of this variance, that the two are not in sync. So that would be how you would view it on a project statement. I'm sorry, on an effort statement. This is an effort statement, not a project statement. The next slide is going to be how it would be displayed on a project statement, because it is different. So in this case, there is no computed effort column, so it does require a little bit more effort by the business managers or effort coordinators. So that the payroll percentage is still going to be displayed and the cost share is still going to be displayed. But as I mentioned, there is no computed effort. So you'll have to just be able to calculate or determine if the payroll percentage plus the cost share percentage, which are displayed, if that calculates to the same amount as what the certified effort is. And this example right here is an entire statement that all of the payroll percentage plus cost share percentage is not in sync with what the certified effort is. And so all of these are considered to be variances, where 3.86% plus 0% does not equal 3.71%. So in any instance where on an effort statement, the actual columns that are displayed for computed effort and certified effort are not matching, or on a project statement where the payroll percentage plus the cost shared percentage, which are displayed, if you add those two up, if that does not equal what is in the certified effort column, then there is a variance issue. And variance needs to be resolved in order for us to, if a variance is not resolved, I'll say it this way, if a variance is not resolved, then that could require for the statement to be reopened. So we want to ensure that variances are resolved. And the way to do that is using this reset button in the upper left-hand corner. Here's kind of a close-up of it. And so if you select this reset button, then it will resync up these two columns. And the same thing will happen on both efforts and project statements using the same icon. But just a note to please, once you've used the reset button, please review and ensure that the cost share, any cost share that was previously reflected, is still reflected there. That is just an important reminder to make sure that that you review the entire statement after resetting it to clear any variance, just in case there are any other implications that were kind of residual in the background. But so clearing up variances is another requirement to ensure that the statement is ready for certification. And then our last topic that we have here anyway is how to place statements on hold should there be some additional editing or adjustments that are required, or if there's still review happening on behalf of the business manager or effort coordinator. So the use of this on hold button is really to prevent a PI from certifying while these adjustments are still happening. Again, we have a close-up of what the on hold button looks like and where it is found, and it is in the same place on both efforts and project statements. And so this is how, especially next week as we move into the certification period, if there are still statements that are needing review, please ensure that you place it on hold. Also keep in mind that it is as a central office, the compliance office, it's our standard practice to place statements on hold if there are any payroll adjustments that would require the statement to be reopened and potentially re-reviewed by the effort coordinator. So we place the statements on hold and then ask the effort coordinator or business manager to review it before removing the hold. And in all of these cases, the business manager, whether we place the hold or your unit does, the business manager has the ability to remove the hold to then allow for the certifier to go in and certify the statements. So those were the nuances that we had, or the reminders that we had that we wanted to review with everyone. Are there any questions